Alright, so this is my recording for my interpersonal interview presentation, and for my interpersonal interview, I decided to interview my stepfather, who, his name is Jesus Perez Real, but he just goes by Jesse most of the time. His gender is male, and he told me that he's from Mexico, which means that his culture is, Hispanic. To start off, I asked him about his background and how his culture kind of shapes the things that he does and what his life was like growing up and stuff. And he told me that his culture revolves around food and building close relationships with family and friends. So for the food aspect, he told me that him and his family have always been very big on food, especially if it's homemade and from scratch and stuff. So normally if there's a family gathering, whether it be for a birthday or a holiday or just a regular get together, there's always a lot of food involved, and most of the time it's homemade from scratch. And then building close relationships with his family, he's really big on too. And since he had 15 siblings growing up, he's got a lot of family between his siblings and his nieces and nephews and his cousins and his in-laws. He's become very close with several people in his family as he's gotten older. His relationships with his siblings growing up, though, were more about survival, but the older they've gotten, it's become more family related. Another thing that he experienced as a child was that he was raised to be a hard worker by his father, because his father owned and operated a farm in Mexico. So Jesse and his siblings were required to work in some aspect, whether it be on the farm or in the house. So he grew up learning what a good work ethic is, and he still carries out a good work ethic to this day. And then next, I asked him how his culture kind of affects his interactions with people sometimes, and he said that because of his culture, he sees people as different from himself unless they're from his home area in Mexico. And then he said that if he's having a conversation with someone from Mexico, he can typically detect what area they're from based on the dialect of Spanish that they speak. And then I asked him how his gender can affect his interpersonal interactions with people. And he told me that because of his culture, men don't typically approach women unless they're a family member that they're close with. And women don't typically approach men in the Hispanic culture. But he told me that men don't typically shy away from approaching each other and having a conversation or whatever they're doing. Then I asked him about his personal and professional life and what it's been like throughout his life and still to this day. And for his professional life, he told me that he works predominantly with Hispanic men, pretty much every job he's had throughout his life, and then coming to the US and everything. And since he works predominantly with Hispanic men, he's mostly outgoing and very talkative on his job sites as a concrete pumper. And then he told me that in his personal life, he experiences the gender role of being the man of the house. And so since he's the man of the house, he gets up early and goes to work 5 to 6 days a week. And then when he gets home, he expects a meal to be ready for the family to pray over and for everyone to eat together and just spend time with each other. And then I asked Jesse about the types of challenges that he's faced throughout his life, like related to his culture and his gender. And he told me that one of his biggest challenges that he faced earlier in his life was the language barrier when he first came to the U.S. because he spoke no English when he came to the U.S., so he had to slowly learn it over the last 35 years. And another big challenge that he faced was that he had a very limited education when he came to the U.S. And then the last challenge that he told me about that he's had to face is he's had to worry about living up to the expectations of a Hispanic male, which would be that he's like worried about being brave and mentally and physically strong and having just the right amount of pride. And then I asked him how he's been able to overcome these challenges that he's faced in his life related to his culture and gender. And he told me that he has used every opportunity available to him to learn more about these challenges and how to push through them. And he told me that he overcame the language barrier by slowly learning it with the help from maybe like friends or some of the family that he has here in the US and just the people that he's worked with throughout the years. And then he overcame the challenge of a limited education the same way through his friends and his family and the people that he's worked with. And then lastly, he told me that the fear of like the expectations that he feels like he has to live up to, he's been able to live up to them and to overcome the fear of not living up to them by not allowing that fear to stop him from taking chances to improve in those areas and to build the life that he's always dreamed of for himself.